Alexa, how many downloads for Jim and Bill, It's Another Day podcast?
From adweek.com. Today, the podcast show has fetched 400 million downloads since its start, and an average of 350,000 downloads per episode, about 3.9 million downloads per week, according to the publisher.
Well, what do you know? There's a lot of you out there listening, and we appreciate it. Don't forget to spread the word. Like and share Jim and Bill, It's Another Day. And once again, thanks for listening. Well, hello there. It's another day. I'm Jim Harrington.
You are?
I am.
Well, then I guess I'm Bill Knight.
A lot of things happening in the news. I wanted to bring this out right away because I'll forget about it otherwise. Did you see the new video that they found? It was a new released video from July 13th in Butler. And it is the most interesting of all the video I've seen because apparently it was taken by one of the victims. One of the people who was shot was videotaping on his phone at the time. And from his perspective, you could see the back of Trump at the podium. And just beyond him in the distance, plain as day, you could see Thomas Matthew Crooks walking across the rooftop, getting into position. It is the darndest video. And for the Secret Service acting director to get on in front of the Senate yesterday and express his chagrin and say that the shooter was kind of hidden by the peak of the roof and stuff like that is bull. Because I could see him. I could see him in the video.
Yeah, they're lying to us. This was a coup. They were all in on it. So you got Hillary. Well, Hillary knows about a lot of people that have met their makers. Barack knew. Joe knew. Kamala knew.
Well,
Kamala was.
We're assuming they knew. We have no actual proof that any of those people knew. But we can guess. We can.
Well,
assume.
you know, they guess about us, don't they? They guess about us all the time.
Yeah, but before
they're Democrats, I understand.
They have permission. They're Democrats. Exactly. Yeah. One of the local officials, I think he was from Beaver County. They had Beaver County people there. They had Butler County people there. And they were not on the same page as the Secret Service. Listen to this.
In those first two windows.
So he's wrong about the assignment.
Absolutely.
I think the biggest thing to not lose sight of is, their job was on being on the outside unsecured perimeter, looking inward at those, that had already gone through security.
The local officials told Fox this was the view their two snipers had. You can see this is a different warehouse window than the one Rowe pointed to, and the vantage point is at the ground level looking into the crowd and not onto the roof. The commander of the local snipers says if the Secret Service had told them to place their snipers on the roof, they would have. Acting Director Rowe says he takes full responsibility, though, and they will be more forward and direct next time with their local counterparts. We've reached out to the Secret Service about what local law enforcement officials are saying here on the ground, and they directed us back to Rowe's congressional testimony.
Okay, I'm sorry. We're getting such a conflicting story, Bill, about what happened. First of all, we're told that the local snipers were in a window on the second floor. They should have been able to see Crooks from their vantage point. But the local snipers are saying, no, we were on the ground level, different window altogether.
Look, Jim, they're putting a lot of balls in the air to distract us. And on the story, there's an old saying: you throw enough crap on the wall, something will stick. They're trying to maneuver the story away from them, or at least cover up or distract us. So they're slinging all the crap. Now, as we uncover more and more stuff, they sling more.
The thing is, they really and truly want you to forget about the story. I mean, the longer that they can obfuscate and push back and delay giving the truth, the more people will forget about it. They'll be distracted by other stories. Other things will come along and take their place. And it happens on a daily basis. You have to remember, folks, that this happened, 3 weeks ago on Saturday? I mean, we're not talking about 3 months ago or a year ago. This is less than a month ago that he was almost shot, the former president of the United States. Someone is covering up something. And, Bill, I got to play this again. I was thinking about this. We should play this clip every day because nobody is talking about this clip or anything like this clip. You would think that the FBI and the Secret Service would have this scientist testify in front of them, speak to them regarding the sounds of the rifles, all right? I know I've played it twice before, and some of you who are regulars may say, well, we've heard this before, but it's important that you hear it again because nobody is talking about it. This is important.
This is the 5 that make a very distinct sound. Here's one with a very different crack in it. That's the 6th shot in the string. And then here we have the final last one, which I think is the sniper weapon, which is probably the one that put the bullet just over the left eye of Crooks on the roof. So we're going to take a closer look at the blue, the red, the blacks here and listen to these things. But once again, let's just listen very carefully. And we'll go back and forth until you're certain of this yourself. These audio pieces are exactly pulled straight from the video itself. Nothing else. I haven't boosted any. I haven't done any filtering. Raw files, okay? Here's 1, 2, and 3 to start. Okay, listen to that again. Now let's listen to the next string. Ooh. Yeah. Hear that? So 6 sounds different to me, but here's an interesting thing. 1, 2, and 3, besides being muffled and further away, it doesn't have echoes. Here we go. So this here's a shot. This is an echo. Very clearly an echo, and a shot in an echo, and a shot in an echo. So this is actually critical evidence because you hear that there's echoes coming off. So that also allows us, again, to analyze where was this gun. But first up, we just have an absolutely different sound between the first 3. There's no echo. It's much further away. It's more muffled. It's just not in the same place at all. But these next ones, very different sound. Totally different weapons. Okay, full stop. We have 2 separate weapons. Plus, we have no echoes coming off of the first 3. And then we do have echoes coming off of the next set. And that last one, that's different. That's not the sniper shot. The sniper shot is another 10 seconds later.
So I've heard of nobody running any test like this. I mean, you would think one of the things they would do, I know this sounds crazy. Call me crazy. A lot of people do. Yeah. But in all honesty, what they should do is they should set the microphone, put a podium, right? Set a podium up at the fairgrounds, set a microphone on it with the same level that they would have it for the president, and then hit record, connect it to a recorder, and then have shooters fire weapons from different locations, the rooftop, maybe the water tower that nobody is even talking about, which is not too far away. The first shots, Bill,
well, you would get echo from the water tower.
Well, I was thinking just the opposite. I was thinking it was so far away that you wouldn't get the reverb. I was thinking that the second group of shots, the bang, 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 bang with the echo, was more like what you would get from a building with a metal roof and a metal background, which he had behind him. But either way, the fact of the matter is, it sounds like there are 2 different weapons, and at least 2 different weapons, and nobody is talking about it. I mean, folks, we're not making stuff up here. This guy that we just played is a doctor, a scientist, and he did acoustical testing. It's not something which was, Mr. Magic stuff. He did a scientific analysis of the shots, and I hear nobody, including the senators, talking about this. Why aren't the senators and the representatives in their hearings saying, we've heard about acoustical differences in the sounds from the firing? Doesn't that represent different weapons? Tell us about that. You know, and by the way, Bill, this new guy, Ron Rowe, the acting Secret Service director, he's stonewalling just like Cheadle was stonewalling. They're telling you a little bit, but not anything of any significance. You know, they're not really.
They're feeding you out a little bit of rope here, a little bit of rope there, and a lot of the rope is misleading. But there's a reason for it. And there's a difference between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. And the Republican Party, you know, we're still trying to absorb the assassination attempt. Now, we don't have a propaganda department. We don't have department heads for each situation. The Democrats a long time ago created a war room, and they have one person that heads it up going, okay, this story's going to come out. You're the department head. You're the guy that rounds this up. You're the lady that rounds up this story. You're the one that does this story. You're the one that does this story. And they're doing that, and they can sit there and cohesively put out their dissemination of untruth. They can get it out there and keep us running in a circle.
Yeah.
We are not organized to sit there to research or defend, because it's just not how the party works.
You know, but
it's
one thing though, Bill, when they do that with politics. I understand that, and you're right. They have a war room at 4:00 in the morning. They send emails out to different news organizations saying what the talking points for the day are going to be. You know, for example, you'll note that a couple of days ago, the talking point, the word was weird, and all of a sudden, everybody was using the term weird in their conversations.
Oddball's a new one. Oddballs out there now, too.
Okay, well, that's the follow-up to weird. They're trying to paint a picture that isn't there, folks. It isn't there. But what really bothers me is when organizations, I mean, serious law enforcement organizations like the FBI and the Secret Service, which are charged with the most important security services in our whole government, when they start to be politicized, when they start to have an agenda that is outside of their charter, then we have a problem, a real problem. I mean, we had the FBI raid Mar-a-Lago, and we had now there's speculation that there was some knowledge of what might be in Butler, PA, and people are looking at organizations like the FBI. And now, I'm not speaking, by the way, for myself. I want to play a 5-minute cut. This is Ron Johnson, U.S. Senator from Wisconsin, talking with Laura Ingraham. Listen carefully, because he talks about the FBI, too.
2.5 weeks since the former president was almost killed, but the FBI still cannot get into all the apps on Thomas Crooks's phone. And today, they explained why.
We've received returns. There are some that we have not been able to get information back because of their encrypted nature.
So you're telling me the guy that took 8 shots at the president, former president, has apps that we can't get into that may, if you could get into, reveal some relevant information?
That is correct, Senator.
We have encrypted apps of an assassin, a murderer, and we can't get into them all these days after. That needs to be fixed. What if, in the future, somebody's using these apps to communicate with a foreign power?
Joining me now, Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson of the Homeland Security Committee. Senator, now they say they can't get into them because they don't have lawful access. This is the classic debate between those who understandably don't trust the government to ever be able to have access to encrypted apps, or frankly any apps, unless there's real probable cause. And the need to find out what the heck happened here. So how should this go down?
It's a difficult issue, quite honestly. You do have civil libertarians. I consider myself one of them who do not trust the government. But the other practicality of this thing is, we could try and pass a law here in America to force American companies to provide a backdoor key but that would just drive people to get foreign encrypted apps. So I don't see how you solve this problem. We were able to solve crimes before we ever had apps. I think we're going to have to make sure we can solve crimes whether we get into apps or not. We'll use what technology is available. But what I'm looking for right now is I just need these agencies to be far more transparent. I mean, we're 17 days past the assassination attempt, and they're just basic pieces of information that remain unanswered. That's unacceptable. I certainly pressed Acting Director Rowe to make sure that the individuals we requested to do transcribed interviews be made available in days, not weeks. I'm glad that Chairman Peters made the same comments, so did Chairman Blumenthal. So we've got the old bipartisan investigation going. Let's hope it succeeds.
Well, the FBI director talked about possible social media linked to the would-be assassin. Watch this part.
Something just very recently uncovered that I want to share is a social media account which is believed to be associated with the shooter. Some of these comments, if ultimately attributable to the shooter, appear to reflect anti-Semitic and anti-immigration themes, to espouse political violence, and are described as extreme in nature.
Now, again, they say they don't have anything confirmed. They don't even know if this account is really his. But in fact, there is another social media account tied to him, which says the opposite. Senator, watch.
The Gab account is pro-immigration, pro-lockdown, leftist views.
From what I've been told, that is accurate. We're still working to certify and verify that that's his account also, but it does have differing points of view, it would appear.
Senator Johnson, you got the deep state that can surveil the Trump campaign, right, back in 2015 and 16. And they can't seem to put two and two together on a 20-year-old. Why are we spending all this money on the FBI if they can? I mean, this seems ridiculous. What am I missing?
You know I do not trust the FBI to do this investigation, honestly. But I caught that contradiction as well. I thought I heard him say initially anti-immigrant, and then you said it was, another one was pro-immigrant. That's the reason I asked the question at the very end of my questioning is they say they're investigating this as an assassination attempt and also as domestic terrorism. So it was obviously an assassination attempt. Why are you classifying as domestic terrorism? And again, my concern is the way this Biden administration is basically, accused half of America of being potential domestic terrorists. And in his testimony, he's talking about as anti-immigrant. Again, they're trying to paint this as a MAGA Republican trying to take out, I guess, the MAGA president. It makes no sense whatsoever. But that's why you can't trust the FBI.
Or to justify more surveillance of Americans for just having the wrong beliefs. That's what a lot of folks out there are worried about tonight, and I don't blame them one bit. There was an exchange with the acting director where he refused to actually answer the question. Watch.
What was the relative size of the Trump detail compared to the detail that is assigned to the president or the first lady? Is it the same number of agents or not?
Senator, there is a difference between the sitting president of the United States.
Then what's the difference?
The difference?
2X, 3X, 5X,
National
10X?
Command Authority to launch a nuclear strike, sir. Senator, I will get you that number so you can see it with your own eyes.
Senator, one-line response to that.
First of all these questions should have already been answered. We shouldn't have even had to ask those questions.
Unbelievable. This guy, this Ron Rowe, he said, everybody knew what Ted Cruz was asking. What's the difference in size? How many agents are on the detail for President Trump versus a sitting president? That was the question. And that's why he said 2X, 1X, 3X. He was talking about the size of the detail. But this guy wanted to defer by saying, well, no, there's a difference. One has the nuclear codes, which has nothing to do with the Secret Service, okay? That's different, but he was trying to take the attention away and not answer the question. Which leads me to believe, Bill, there are a lot of questions I have about and that aren't being answered. For example, the parents are mental health experts or professionals. Supposedly, Thomas Crook's parents are. This is what I've heard. If that's the case, were they involved in any way? Was Thomas Crook's their natural child? Was he a foster child? Were they? I mean, what was the relationship? Now they seem to have. I've been watching the news and going to alternate news sources, and they seem to be out of the spotlight, so to speak, meaning they're not being focused on. The FBI apparently is satisfied with their position in the story, and they're not going after him. But they did scour the house. They took the silverware. They took all the silverware from the house.
Look, all they want to do is leave us confused. Anytime there's an answer, they work with linguistics. They sit there and they challenge it and they divide it. They dichotomize it to where, with the division, no two parts relate to each other from your question of inquiry. And it's done to sit there and confuse and dilute and move on. They don't want you to get to the heart, the truth of the matter. And that's why I say they departmentalize stories so somebody can sit there and do this. They've got a war room like this, and that's what they've done. They're all about deception and fraud. And was there a hit on Trump? Yeah, there was. Are we going to find out? Not in our lifetime.
I think what you're saying is true, unfortunately. I mean, but questions that we've asked already this morning that haven't been addressed about the sound. Were there multiple gunshots? Were there multiple shooters? We've heard the fact that 2 different rifles were used, and they weren't the counter snipers' rifles. So what were they all about? We're being told that one guy fired one weapon at the president, and that's it.
Well, see, from a Democratic point of view, there were 2 weapons. Well, now they're going to sit there and take the 2 and dichotomize it. Now you got 4 different little narrative lines going on there, and they further divide it. And it's just a ball of confusion that they're giving us. They will not simply answer the question. Well, divide it, divert it.
We have not been told about anything about the water tower. Have you heard? I'm asking our listeners.
No.
I know we can't hear you, but I mean, I would be willing to bet that most of our listeners haven't heard a thing about the water tower.
Nobody's mentioned the water tower but us and maybe one other person. And that's it. Nobody's talking about it.
We saw a test, both Bill and I did, on YouTube. You can go check it for yourself, where a marksman took the exact same rifle, used a ballistic head, if you know what that's made out of, ballistic gel, which is supposed to simulate the human skull, and shot it from the same distance as the counter snipers would have shot Crooks. And the ballistic head disintegrated. And the guy said, why isn't it that Crooks didn't have the same fate? Why wasn't he, why wasn't his head exploded? It wasn't.
Should have been. It was, but it wasn't. I mean,
So who shot him? And from what distance? And from where? We're being told it was the counter snipers, but if they were using their $15,000 rifles to shoot that guy, it would have been a mess, and it wasn't.
Yeah, well, look, there are a lot of questions. There's still that cryptic video that was out that you got the wrong guy. I don't know. Now, was that done just as a tool to sit there and get us off the track? There's so many things and so many dissections of the story that it's going to be hard to focus. And that is something that the Republicans don't have, Trump doesn't have, because they never thought that they would live in a day where they would have to do it. But this is warfare, and they need a war room to sit there and answer all these things that are being thrown out there. It's warfare.
Yeah. We are we're in a strange situation. It's like a bad movie. We're not being told the truth. We learn more from internet investigations by regular people than the FBI and the Secret Service has given us. We have learned nothing of any importance from either of those organizations, except that we've been lied to.
I can tell you the one thing, related but not related to the story, that the Democrats are working at, and they're getting close to doing it. They're labeling, like they say, we're weird, we're oddballs, we're a threat to democracy. They're labeling MAGA people, Trump people, conservatives as domestic conservative terrorists. At some point in time, they're going to say, now we've painted the story big enough to where we can ban them and start locking people up. And I'm not saying that as a threat. I'm just saying they are trying to nullify your vote, our party. If you're Republican, then I'll say our party, or the party you choose to vote for in this election. They want to nullify it and make it a domestic terrorist group. And once they do that, it's a one-party system, and that is democratic democracy.
We are on the precipice of being a third world nation.
We already are.
Well, right now in Venezuela, literally Maduro lost by 30%, supposedly. All the experts are saying that. He lost by 30%. But the fact of the matter is he controls the military. So he is literally putting people in jail who argue with the outcome of the elections. He said he won, and that's it.
And if Trump wins, look for the same thing to happen during that null time between the election and the swearing in.
Well, these are, that would be the frosting on the cake. If
they're doing it in Britain.
They're already queuing up the ball for another stolen election. They're telling us already in Pennsylvania that we can expect the voting to take at least 2 days, the tallying of the votes. What nonsense. I've lived in this state for 40 years. They've tabulated the votes in less than a night.
They're queuing up the scorecard here for another assassination attempt on Trump. But this time they believe they won't miss if they have to do it again.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because I think I mentioned this yesterday. A counter sniper with the Secret Service sent an email out to all of the uniform division. Supposedly it was just to them, but it got out to the press. And he said, look, if 5 of the top people in our organization aren't removed soon, we can expect another assassination attempt before November. It will happen. And then he sent a follow-up saying after Cheadle left, he said, okay, 1 down, 4 to go. What he was saying was that they're being held back from doing their job and doing it properly by management, which says to me, do they have an idea, that I'm talking about the upper-level guys, that something might happen? And do they cut back on the size and the effectiveness of the security detail on the 13th of July? It would appear that way to me. They sent a bunch of Trump's agents off to guard Jill Biden in Pittsburgh at a function of 400 people. 400 people. She's not a target by anybody. In the meantime, there were like 50,000 people in Butler in the fairgrounds, and he had a diminished security staff.
Mm-hmm. Hey, you know what? I don't. I've made fun of the Fumbleinas, but I don't really fault them, because they were thrown into a position. They weren't trained. They were not Secret Service people. They were hired just to go and act like and look like and given service guns. And when I don't think that they would have ever thought they were thrown into this too.
Were they local cops, Bill? Were they local, like police officers from the community?
Don't know, but a cop would know how to holster a gun.
Yeah.
These people didn't know how to holster a gun. They were a little bit overweight too, so they didn't fit the model of Secret Service.
Now they're not saying that. They're saying that they were. Even Trump said that the agents were for real. I don't know whether But
he was told they were for real, but no.
I've heard what you're saying, by the way. I've heard what you're saying. I've heard the exact same story that they were not real agents. They were.
Well, let's put it this way: the one girl that had her arm up, and she was trying to protect, as she knew how to do. She was supposedly Jill's, agent. But I don't really buy that story. She might have been a friend or something, and she might. There were a lot of they're fighting this diversity, equity, and inclusion thing now. The attack saying that Kamala was that. Well, that's exactly what she was. Democrats said that too, but now to say that, that's a racial thing. There's so many things that they change. They control the narrative. They can change the narrative whenever they want. And that's what they're doing.
I look at those people on the stage, and no matter where they came from, you have to commend that. They literally put themselves in the line of fire. I mean, there was no guarantee that the shooting was over when they jumped on the stage and covered the president. And yes, you're right. They had the agent should be as big or bigger than the president, than the person they're protecting. Forget about the sex, the gender. Forget about that nonsense. Talk about protection. And also, the other thing I don't understand, Bill, and I was thinking about this, I mentioned this to my wife. Why don't they have at the foot of the stairs a stand that holds some ballistic shields? Ballistic shields, you've seen them, the riot police use them, where they literally will fend off a round. They'll be like a bullet will ricochet off it. Supposedly, it'll bounce off the ballistic shield. Why don't they grab a hold of some of those when they're climbing onto the stage so that they can cover themselves with ballistic shields? The other question I was going to ask is, why don't they put a trap door on the stage so that when the president is standing there, if he's in the line of fire, they can open the trap door and take him under the stage? I mean, why? You would think there'd be certain regulations and rules that they have in place that I'm making this stuff up as I go. Why hasn't the Secret Service figured this out a long time ago? If a president's on a stage, by the way, the simplest of things they didn't do is they should be able to bring the Secret Service van, the president's car, right to the stairs, right to the foot of the stairs, so that if they bring him down the stairs, they stick him in the car. They don't have to walk him 30 yards or 40 yards away to a parking lot where the car is, like they did in Butler. Why isn't it that he comes off the stage, down the stairs, into the van? This is not brain surgery. This is common sense. Who's running this show? And this goes, Bill, back to what we talked about a little while ago. The guys up on the top level of these organizations, they're messing with they're messing with the charters of these organizations, and they're diminishing their effectiveness. And I think they're doing it intentionally.
I believe so too. There's a lot here that I get back to what I say. They've got so many balls in the air. They're managed balls that we don't know who's throwing what ball and what one that we got to bat away. We got to bat them all away. But unfortunately, they're all equally important, if that makes sense. So how do you combat this? I guess
I don't know. I guess you gotta get in. You gotta get Trump into office, and you really have got to do a cleansing of these organizations. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, you've got to remove the entire management systems of both the FBI and the Secret Service, and you've got to replace them with honest, trustworthy, loyal, patriotic Americans.
Well, we got to get off the defense and get on the offense. And that's going to take some planning. That means probably a meeting and then doing the same thing. Kamala's got a lot of things that she needs to defend, but she's not having to defend it because we're trying to get to the bottom of the assassination attempt. Will there be another one? We're trying to get to the bottom of every damn thing that's going on out there that they keep throwing. And then they got fake poll numbers. It's getting really disgusting with with everything that we got going on.
President Trump was yesterday. He went out to Chicago to a meeting. The National Association of Black Journalists invited him to come out and to speak. And, he's a busy guy. He was going to be in Harrisburg later in the day. So he said to him, look, can we do it on a Zoom call? And they said, no. If you want to reach our people, if you want to reach the black audience, you got to be here in person.
Yeah.
So he says, okay, I'll be there. So he goes out there to Chicago. He flies in. He gets, limoed to the studios. He goes there, and Carmela, who was supposed to be there, isn't there.
She's not there. And
they say, well, she's going to Zoom it. And he says, well, wait a second. How come she can Zoom it and I can't? And by the way, at the end of the day, she didn't even Zoom it. She said it was a conflict. She couldn't do it at all. But I want to play for you the opening to this. It was abysmal. There's an ABC reporter named Rachel Scott. She's she's a Harris operative, and she was there to sabotage Trump.
It was a setup.
And he would have none of it. Listen.
I want to start by addressing the elephant in the room, sir. A lot of people did not think it was appropriate for you to be here today. You have pushed false claims about some of your rivals, from Nikki Haley to former President Barack Obama, saying that they were not born in the United States, which is not true. You have told 4 congresswomen of color who were American citizens to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabid to describe black district attorneys. You've attacked black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking black supporters to vote for you, why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question in such a horrible manner. First question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network. And I think it's disgraceful that I came here in good spirit. I love the black population of this country. I've done so much for the black population of this country, including employment, including opportunity zones with Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, which is one of the greatest programs ever for black workers and black entrepreneurs. I've done so much, and and I say this, historically black colleges and universities were out of money. They were stone cold broke, and I saved them, and I gave them long-term financing, and nobody else was doing it. I think it's a very rude introduction. I don't know exactly why you would do something like that. And let me go a step further. I was invited here, and I was told my opponent, whether it was Biden or Kamala, I was told my opponent was going to be here. It turned out my opponent isn't here. You invited me under false pretense, and then you said you can't do it with Zoom. Well, where's Zoom? She's going to do it with Zoom, and she's not coming. And then you were half an hour late. Just so we understand, I have too much respect for you to be late. They couldn't get their equipment working, or something
Mr.
was
President,
wrong.
I would love
I think
you
it's
can
a
answer the
very
question
nasty
on your rhetoric
question.
and why you
I have
think
answered
black
the
voters
question.
should trust you with another 4
I have
years.
been the best president for the black population since Abraham Lincoln. That's my answer.
Better than President Johnson, who signed the Voting Rights Act.
For you to start off a question and answer period, especially when you're 35 minutes late because you couldn't get your equipment to work in such a hostile manner, I think it's a disgrace.
Let me just ask a follow-up, sir, and then we'll move on to other questions.
You'll move on.
Yeah.
You'll move on.
Which she did, and the whole thing was an attack session. And Lyndon B. Johnson, he was a racist, by the way, just so you know.
Well, I can tell you that he handled her masterfully all afternoon. She did not get the upper hand. She tried to nail him, but he would have none of it. And what he said is true. I mean, look what he did with black colleges. They were on the verge of going out. And previous administrations had required black colleges to come hat in hand every year to the government to ask for financing and funding. Every year they were required. President Trump, he had them come in. They said, "It's good to see you, Mr. President." He said, how often do you guys have to do this? He said, "Well, we have to do it every year, Mr. President." He said, "That's ridiculous. Let's make it every 10 years. Why would you have to come every year?" And he made it every 10 years. So when he says he's been the best friend to the black community since Abraham Lincoln, he's absolutely correct. You may not like President Trump because you don't like his tan or his accent or his mannerisms, but his actions say he's a dynamic American president. And boy, compared to Carmela, it's like light years difference.
Yeah, if you attack Carmela, it's a racial thing, and there's confusion. It was confusion by the media over the years, confusion put out there by Carmela, who, she was raised black. Her mother was Indian, her father was Jamaican. They're both Marxists. He teaches that at Yale, but either way, and the apple don't fall far from the tree. But she always sits there, whatever is convenient. I'm Indian. I'm going to be the first woman Indian. I'm going to be the first woman Indian Asian. I'm going to be the first black woman. Okay, so you're using these as cards in a deck. They're not ace cards. They're joker cards.
Well, let me play something for you. Okay, the night before last, she was speaking in Atlanta, and that's down south. For those of you who don't pay attention.
Oh, y'all.
Yeah. Here's Carmela in Atlanta.
We are all in this together.
Nope. Sorry. Wrong cut. Here's Carmela.
Okay.
Here's Carmela in Atlanta.
And you all helped us win in 2020, and we're going to do it again in 2024.
Well.
Yes, we will.
Do you notice the accent? Now, here's Carmela, not in Atlanta.
We are all in this together, and your vote is your power. So please make sure your voice is heard this November and register to vote at vote.gov.
Notice no accent and accent. Now, I want to remind you of what someone else did who was running for president when she was in a similar situation.
I don't feel no ways tired. I come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me that the road would be easy. I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me.
Unbelievable. That was Hillary.
It's a mockery.
By the way, Hillary was a Yale graduate, and nothing about her life was hard. Okay, nothing.
Yeah. Look, I've lived in Florida. I've lived in Georgia. I lived in Alabama. And I am not from the South, and nor did I dare try to even patronize them by trying to y'all and stuff like that.
But don't you think the people in Georgia realize what she's trying to do when she's on the stage?
Well, yeah, they're going, she ain't no peach, and she's not from Georgia. And the same thing goes for Texas and Mississippi and Louisiana. I worked through that southern belt of states down there. All of them, Texas, Louisiana, didn't work in Mississippi, but I worked in Mobile, and I worked in Florida. So I know the areas. Georgia, I got up to do a lot of work there. I worked in the Carolinas. I know Southern, she is a phony.
What do you think would happen to President Trump if he went to a rally in Atlanta and all of a sudden President Trump started to talk with a Southern accent? And he started to say things like, you should vote for me in 2024 because I can do more for the South than any of those Yankees.
Well, the Democrats would come out and make fun of him and call him on it. And the Southern people, they would be polite. They wouldn't say anything. They'd smile and then go vote for somebody else.
That's true. The Southerners, and by the way, they are it's a smart part of our country. These are people who, you may think they're rubes because, they're rural, a lot of them, but they're not. They're not. These are people who pay attention to the world, and they know when someone's trying to put something over on them.
country dumb is smarter than you think that they are, and and they just smile. Yeah, well, you know what? In the end, I'll show you.
They almost
They
almost won the Civil War. You know that. People don't realize it. First 3 years of the war, people don't realize this. The first 3 years of the Civil War, the South was doing a number on the North. And it wasn't until maybe Gettysburg when things started to change. But I only mention that because these were rural people for the most part, but they were bound, determined. They were people of faith. And boy, people in the South have got a strong faith.
Yeah.
You don't screw around with them,
Yeah, and this Kamala and the race card, and she's black, okay? And the confusion that even the media has played into it, but they can cover up their story. But, Wentworth Miller, actor. You don't know he's black, but he's black. Rashida Jones, black. Maya Randolph, black. Jennifer Bill, black. Many more. Carol Channing, do you remember her?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Nice blonde hair.
Hello, Dolly.
Yeah, beautiful white woman. Her dad was black.
Well, hey, listen.
So she was black.
And so what?
So what? Exactly right.
They play it. The Democrats.
She never played it.
They play
Kamala plays it.
Yes.
Because it's entitlement. She deserves something. Now, I don't even like to throw the word black or colored or anything like that around there, but the people that I do know, they don't play the card. I consider myself like them, and they consider themselves like me. We're both equal, and may the best person win. It's as simple as that.
Hey,
if we're competitive, but
yesterday,
other than that,
the youngest PhD in our history graduated with a PhD at 17 years of age. 17, and she's black.
Smart kid.
That's the kind of image that should be going viral on the internet.
Yeah, part of the narrative that's out there, that she has to deal with. It's not just by white people; it's people of all ethnicities. She had hurdles to jump, but she did because she sat there. She had her priorities and her values right, and she graduated young with those honors. So
this is not the image that they want to they have an agenda. The media has an agenda. The politicians have an agenda. They want to pigeonhole people to be a certain stereotype. They don't want to promote the fact that we're all capable of the same thing. We're all capable of genius, of exceptionalism. All these things are an option for every man, woman, and child in this country. Forget the color. Seriously, our country, the politicians, the powers that be want to keep us divided. If we're divided, they can conquer us.
Well, they teach us control. I've always been a proponent that, the education system, we can bring kids up faster, smarter, and get them through the school years at a quicker pace. I totally believe that. I know how I would envision putting that together. But, we like to lock kids down because we want them used to being under control, and we scare them. The only way that you're going to make it is, more money for the corporate America and more control. Now you got to go to college. And they indoctrinate you to, look, there's a whole long thing, a litany of things I could go through to sit there and say, we are sheep or cattle being herded through life, and it's all to the big conglomerates. And
it all circles back to things like this assassination attempt.
Yes.
They don't want us to know stuff, and to hell with them. They're not going to know it, folks.
And they want to say the money of the world is the Republicans. But look at the billionaires that are dumping their money into Kamala and or Biden, because Kamala's really not the candidate yet.
But listen, I don't know whether you heard about this. Speaking of billionaires, David Marcus is the former CEO of PayPal. He announced that he's switching parties to Republican and will back Donald Trump in November. This makes Marcus a member of a long list of people who are rethinking their political positions. But he is a successful guy who has historically voted Democratic, and it was interesting. He said he had to do some real thinking about this, and he found that he was a Democrat. He found himself being a Democrat because he always had been. You know, It was like wait a second, why am I doing this? Why am I still saying that I'm in this position when I don't agree with what's happening? And then he had to rethink about it, and now he's going to back Donald Trump. This says that there are a lot of people out there who are going through changes. Kevin O'Leary was on with Jesse Waters, and they were talking about some of the people that he knows who are getting buyer's remorse about Kamala. Listen.
When we syndicate debt for real estate projects, we don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. So I deal with a lot of investors, agnostic to politics, and some of them are very big contributors to the Democratic Party. I heard for the first time today, because we like to talk about politics, mostly on policy, and what he said to me was, some of us are having some buyer's remorse. We wish we'd run a process because we got so much press in the first 9 days of bringing somebody into the party and raised $200 million plus, which is like a balloon underwater. It just wasn't Biden, so they started contributing. But we gave up 5 weeks of fantastic social media in guessing who really should be the candidate. Now, I hadn't heard that before. It's not that many. I'd guess 20% or something like that. But so that's starting to crack a little bit. And there is precedence for what's going on here. I ask everybody to look north to Canada when a young Justin Trudeau swept in. Nobody cared about his executional skills or what he'd ever done or anything. They just thought he was the it guy. Look at the country now. It's wiped out. And because it turns out the guy had no executional skills. It would be important to leave aside the politics and ask, what has Kamala Harris actually done, actually achieved? Because if I was hiring her, and I'm not trying to be partisan, I would ask her, what was a goal? What did you achieve? Because any governor or any senator that would put into presidential viability would have a history, a track record of doing stuff.
What do you think she would say, Kevin, if you asked her in an interview straight up, Kamala, what's your biggest accomplishment? What would she say?
I don't know, because I don't know of one, but I can tell you this. In the next 2 weeks, the happy talk is going to have to stop because someone's going to sit her down and say, let's talk inflation. Let's talk border. Let's talk policy on energy. Let's talk policy on foreign affairs. And if she doesn't deliver on that with the new vision towards the center, the guy that said, I wish we'd run a process is going to be right. If she wants to win, she's got to go to the center, but she's got to have some ideas on how to run the country. You might hate Trump, but he has this track record of policy. You might hate him. I get it. But, you got to do something.
No tax on tips, border wall, tax reductions, stop the wars. I mean, you can nail it. I don't know what she wants. I just know she wants the power. Kevin O'Leary, you're right, though. That would have been the greatest American Idol audition this country's ever seen, and they just handed it to her, and now look what happened.
What he said is so true. I mean, he said he would have asked the question, what are your accomplishments? What have you done? And he said, offhand, I can't think of anything she's done. And I can't think. I mean, can you?
No, she hasn't done anything. I mean, you can look at her record as a prosecutor, and that's a joke right there. But she is saying what she wants to do, and it's extreme what she wants to do. She's talking about entitlements. She's talking about gun bans. She's talking about a lot of entitlements to a lot of people. It's more government control. We will be a Marxist government in probably within the first year, because she is just going to rubber stamp a lot of things, do away with a lot of things. We already know the electronic cars don't work, but yet by 2030 we're all electric or nothing, so it's going to be a bust because we quit.
I just read a story yesterday where all the major electronic car companies are going through terrible times, including Tesla. Tesla's laid off a bunch of people. So they're just having a hard time finding a market because they're so hard to maintain, to operate.
Let me ask you a question. UAW, what are they?
What are the UAW? It's United Auto Workers. These are the guys who put the cars together.
Yeah, they build the gas cars, right?
Right.
So the union has thrown its 400,000 people to Kamala, who says, I'm going to get rid of you in the next 5 years.
Yeah, but what's really funny about that is that may be the management doing that, but the rank and file are lockstep with President Trump. And they've actually even said that publicly. They've actually said, ignore the leadership. We're with you.
I don't poo-poo unions, fighting for people's rights. But the powers that be with the union, they deal with you, the common person, and they take your money. But you know who they're coddled to? The big money, the owners, the operators. So when push comes to shove, guess who's getting screwed?
Yeah, well, the average guy. President Trump was in a rally in Harrisburg yesterday. I don't know how he does it. I do not know how he does it. I mean, he was in Chicago at a meeting, which went over. Actually, he handled it well, and it may have been to his benefit because the people in Chicago ended up cheering him. These were people in the black media, whereas they thought they were going to shiv the guy. If you know what shivving in prison terms, they stab him in the back, and it didn't work out. And then he flew off to Harrisburg and had another massive rally. People loved him. It was a great. I don't know how he does it, Bill. I guess after that he gets on his plane and flies back to Mar-a-Lago. Hopefully he'll get some rest. On a different subject, we're on the verge of World War III in the Middle East. We have Hezbollah, one of their leaders was taken out a couple of days ago by Israel, and because Israel was retaliating against an attack on a schoolyard that killed 12 kids. And so they took out a leader of Hezbollah in Beirut, Lebanon, and now the Hezbollah are saying they're going to retaliate yet again. That's a promise. And then, of course, yesterday in Tehran, one of the Hamas leaders was there for, I guess, an inauguration of the new president of Iran. And literally, this has got to strike fear into the hearts of every anti-Israeli. Literally, Israel put a missile into his bedroom. I mean, they didn't just know where kind of he was. They knew exactly where he was, and they took him out in a precision strike. And now, if I were like someone else who's a big Hamas leader, I'd be worried about. Do I eat in my regular house, or do I get a bomb shelter somewhere to eat in? Because they're going to come after me next.
And they can probably hit you anytime, any place, anywhere, just like we can. So if they put a target on your head, it's a target, which means we're on the verge of war. It's going to happen. Could happen before the election. I know we've called it before, saying it could be any time now. It could be any time now. But I guarantee we will be at war, if not before the election, surely afterwards, because Kamala and what she believes, she is a Marxist. And she doesn't care what costs there are to getting what she wants.
Another thing you won't hear in the news, do you remember in Texas, one of the things they tried to do to stem the tide of illegals coming into Texas is they put buoys, these big orange buoys in the middle of, they strung them like pearls in the middle of the Rio Grande River, and they worked. They were incredibly effective. So the Biden administration went to court, and a judge put in a stay and ordered Texas to remove the buoys until they had a judgment as to whether they were legal. Well, what like a year went by, right? And yesterday, the United States Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit sided with Republican Governor Greg Abbott of Texas in case involving Abbott's July 2023 decision to install a floating barrier in the Rio Grande River near Eagle Pass, Texas, as part of an effort to stem the tide of immigrants crossing illegally into the United States. So now Texas has the ability, once again, of repositioning those buoys. But still, the Biden administration is going to take it to the next level. But at least for the time being, all of the stays that were put in place have been removed, and they can go back to doing what they were doing. Also, Bill, they went to Comic-Con out in San Diego. I don't know if you heard about this.
The pedophiles?
Yeah. They had a raid at Comic-Con, which is a big convention every year. All these nerds go out there, and they get together, and the latest gadgets and stuff like that are displayed, and it's a love fest of nerds. But for some reason, because there's so many people there, I guess there's a market for pedophilia, and they had a sting, and I guess they arrested a bunch of people, and they rescued like 10 to 12 kids who were being held as sex slaves. I mean, this is the kind of thing, by the way. If you're looking at Carmela, she's part of the Biden administration, and the Biden administration is specifically responsible for opening our borders and allowing human sex trafficking, child trafficking, to bloom and blossom in the United States. And when you hear about people dying of fentanyl poisoning, it's not overdosing. It's poisoning. It's poisoning, folks. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's because we have allowed those drugs to come in unchecked, basically, because of the policy of this administration. You should never consider this lady, as a president, because she's been part of this administration.
Going to be interesting to see who she picks as her VP. I guess we'll know this weekend. And I don't know what your bets are on. I mean, there's Shapiro out there, but you know who's making a lot of rounds this week? Buttigieg.
Oh, my God. Well,
because, they say that she needs a white guy or she needs a woman. Well, there you go. You got them both with him. And I'm not saying that to be mean, but, his husband would tell you so.
I just think there's too much baggage with him. I think that Shapiro is he checks off a lot of the boxes, but she's courting the Islamic vote in Michigan, and they're anti-Israel, and Shapiro is Jewish, and I
think it's a problem for both of them.
It should not be it shouldn't be even something to consider. It should be a natural, but they're considering that. But I think you might find that someone like Pritzker of Illinois might be in the running. Whitmer in Michigan may be in the running. I think that Buttigieg, I think he would be the one piece that literally closes the door on any chance they have. Because
they're going to lie their way through. Now, it's going to be interesting when they get to the convention. If it goes smoothly, she's on a honeymoon, it may last. They'll get the nice bump. Because I think when they saw the convention coming up and what happened to Trump and that they missed, they sat there and said, we got to do something. And that's where Kamala came into the picture. They did this to, steal the thunder. And bravo, they did a great job with their lies and what they did, because it was all a plan. They're doing the name calling. They've got the weird. They've got the oddball.
Yeah.
But it's a full court press. They are, I think I sent you a transcript on a supposed piece of audio that I don't believe. But it is a beautiful thing that they're doing from the form of an attack, because what they're trying to do is say, Trump wasn't happy with J.D. Vance, who they've been attacking from day one. Oh, you ought to get rid of the guy. They attack him. So now they're trying to divide the Trump family, saying that Trump had a call with Don Jr. And they have a transcript of it Well, number one, it was a cell phone call. So are they saying they tapped the wires? Because that's a whole different thing if they did, although that would legitimize that there was a call. But they don't have the audio. They just have a transcript that is very, it doesn't sound real. But what they're doing is they're putting it out there. They're doing this attack. They are going to try to attack him, his integrity, put divides in the family. And, they're doing the name blasting, and that's what they do. They are very divisive.
Well, let me tell you something, folks. If you are somebody who pays attention to polls and has done so historically, I want you to listen to this. The liberal media is going ballistic, because they've been putting all their effort and their coin behind Kamala, and they've been just saying all these great things and just trying to tear down everything about Trump and Vance. Vance is a guy who came from poverty, who was an ex-combat veteran from Iraq. He was a Marine. Mm-hmm. He went to Yale. He then went to he went to Ohio State first. Then he went to Yale Law School, and he was a success. He was a self-made man, literally. And but they're trying to make him sound weird. Now, mind you, Ron Howard directed and paid for the rights to his book, Hillbilly Elegy, because they thought he was anything but weird. They thought he was an American success story. But now, because he's running for vice president, I'm sure they're all going to be out there saying what kind of an oddball he is. But there's a guy a liberal pollster named Nate Silver. He's historically on the side of any Democrat. He just is. He's he's always in the New York Times. He's always somebody who does his very best to point out the strengths of the left and the weaknesses of the right. Well, he has said that Trump remains the favorite to win in November. No matter what is happening right now, no matter what the left is saying right now, it looks like it's going to be Trump's to win in November. As it stands right now. Now, I do happen to think that Trump is in a dangerous situation. I think that they tried to kill him once, and I think that they're going to try to do it again, and I hope that he's being protected on a daily basis. I can't watch his rallies anymore, Bill, the way I used to. I watch them, but it's like I can't look, because every second that he's on stage, I worry for the guy. It's like, oh man, are they gonna try to shoot him here in this venue? And I'm sure I'm not alone. I'm sure there's a lot of people who feel the exact same way I do.
Well, the sad thing is they're going to try again, and they may get lucky. The sad thing is, and there was wherever Kamala was yesterday, there happened to be a person of interest that the FBI apprehended. Whether that was fake or not, it was somebody that apparently was stalking her. So, when what happened to Trump happened, it set a precedent that the wackos that are out there might come into play too. These people that just want to get in the history books.
Bill, don't you think that? First of all, you have to understand that, in my opinion, this was a setup in Butler. He wasn't.
Oh, it was absolutely.
He wasn't alone. And that being said, I also think that if they arrested somebody around Carmela, I want to see who that person is. I want to see his face. I want to see him do a perp walk. I don't want to hear that they arrested somebody and not see. I don't want to hear just a story. Okay.
Well, that's what the Democrats do. They float these things to say, oh yeah, well somebody tried to go after Kamala too. You see the back of their head, and then they move on to another story because they're trying to diffuse what happened to Trump, and they're having a hard time with that.
Yeah, they're trying to also make it sound like, well, Carmela's being assaulted too, or being stalked too, like it's the same thing. You have to remember, folks, that Trump was shot. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just looked at the clock.
Oh, she would scream like a little schoolgirl if what happened to Trump happened to her.
I look at the clock on the wall. We have run out of time again, my friend. We will do it again tomorrow. We're going to have a lot to talk about, I'm sure, because every day something new and interesting is going on. This news cycle, and by the way, they're trying to push that story out of the news, the assassination attempt.
Of course they are, yeah.
But let's not let it happen. And let's keep it out there. You, the listener, we'll try to keep talking about it here so that at least somebody's talking about it. It should not be forgotten. You know, people are being manipulated right now, and it's not fair to us as a country.
No, it's not.
Anyway, my friend, you can contact us at www.itsanotherday.com or www.jimandbill.com. Sir, that's all I got for today. That's it. It's a wrap for me.
Don't forget to give us a like and share us with your friends, too, especially if you like the show. We'd appreciate that. You know, we've always got, it's not like being at the dinner table letting out your belt so you can have room for more. We're always ready to grow this show. It's a big show, but we still, you know, would like to grow bigger. Other than that, hasta la vista, baby. We're out of here.
Well, you may run on for a long time. Run on for a long time. Run on for a long time. Sooner or later, gotta cut you down. Sooner or later, gotta cut you down. Midnight rider, I tell the gambler, the rambler, a backbiter, I tell him God Almighty's gonna cut him down. But sooner or later, gotta cut you down. Oh, well, stop, God Almighty, let me tell you the news. My head's been wet with a midnight dew. I've been down on bended knees, talking to the man from Galilee. My God spoke and he spoke so sweet. I thought I heard the shuffle of angels' feet. He put one hand upon my head. Great God Almighty, let me tell you what he said. He said, tell that long-tongued liar, tell that midnight rider, the gambler, the rambler, a backbiter, I tell him God Almighty's gonna cut him down. But sooner or later, gotta cut you down. You may throw a rock, hide your hand, working in the dark is your fellow man. As sure as God be day and night, what you do in the dark will be brought to the light. You can run and hide, slip and slide, trying to take the mote from your neighbor's eye. As sure as God may rich and poor, you may reap just what you sow. Run on for a long time, run on for a long time, run on for a long time. Sooner or later, gotta cut you down. Sooner or later, gotta cut you down. Oh, tell that long-tongued liar, tell that midnight rider, I tell the gambler, the rambler, a backbiter, I tell him God Almighty's gonna cut him down. But sooner or later, gotta cut you down. Go to church just to signify, or trying to make a date with a neighbor's wife. My brother, let me tell you, it sure is your fault. You better leave that woman alone. One of these days, mark my words, you think your brother is gone to work. You sneak up and knock on his door. Look out, brother, you're not no more. Run on for a long time. Run on for a long time. Run on for a long time. Sooner or later, gotta cut you down. Sooner or later, gotta cut you down. Oh, tell that long-tongued liar, tell that midnight rider, I tell the gambler, the rambler, a backbiter, I tell him God Almighty's gonna cut him down. Sooner or later, gotta cut you down. My God Almighty will cut you down. Good God Almighty will cut you down. Yes, he will.
This is CRN America.